The Chainalysis webinar was quite interesting. It was about the Darknet Markets. The speaker this time was Hannah Curtis, not Kim, like last time and every other times. And in the beginning, there was some information on the company that I found interesting. They have 180 plus customers over 40 countries, and they actually listed some exchanges those are using them. So it's BitPay, Bitstamp, Binance, and Corebit. This is what they listed. So yeah, just keep that in mind, guys. All right, so Darknet Markets. The most prominent goods were drugs and mainly marijuana, no surprise there. There were some trends. What are the Darknet Market trends? One thing is that Bitcoin volatility has no impact at all on the Darknet Market's volume. So it looks like the Darknet market is growing even if the price is up or down. Just doesn't matter. It's a market. So how does the Darknet market activity grows? Because it has grown except the last year. So in 2012 there was. This is the total value sent to Darknet Markets. That's what I'm going to tell you now. 2012, 57 million. 2013, 196 million. 2014, 254 million. 2015, 357 million. 2016, 566 million. 2017, 707 million, and 2018, 603 million. So why did it go down a little bit? They say it's probably because of the shutdowns, which makes sense. However, even though the Darknet market activity is growing steadily, the Darknet market activity is decreasing in relation to the total cryptocurrency activity. So looks like what Andreas was saying back then, that now we are only using, there is a lot of criminals who are using it, but as more and more mainstream coming, it's less and less criminals in relation to the whole total activity. So that prediction seems to be true there. So what is the share of Bitcoin's economic value sent to Darknet markets? In 2012, it was 7%. In 2016, it was less than 1%. And in 2018, it was so small, I couldn't even figure out from the chart because the chart wasn't showing it because it was so small. So they didn't tell us what's the percentage there. Now, one interesting trend is single vendor shops are emerging because of Darknet market takedowns. So that makes sense too. Privacy coins are starting to surface, mainly Monero, but very slowly, and they are kind of insignificant for now, but they are starting to be present. I'm not quite sure what that means because they were starting to be present in 2016 or 17 when Alphabet started accepting Monero, but well, there you go, they are starting to be present. I2P and Open Bazaar are starting to gain traction too, but very, very slowly. Tor is still the king. There was a Darknet market that changed from Tor to I2P, and then they shut down because they had no customers. So that was interesting. And now Bitcoin mixing. This was very interesting. So you might heard me citing something, an elliptic report previously, that 30% of all darknet market activity, darknet market users were using mixers. It looks like this 30%, at least according to Chainalysis, this 30% was true about 2014 and 15. And today, almost no darknet market users or vendors are mixing. Like, again, the chart was, the percentage was so small, and it looks like everyone is just sending directly to exchanges, which is very interesting, and mixing is decreasing. Why is that? I don't know. Maybe the darknet market users are becoming less sophisticated. That would be my only guess there. Do you guys have any guesses that why our Bitcoin mixing is less and less used on the darknet?
Well, it could just be that, customers are using on and off ramps where mixing doesn't really matter as much. Like local Bitcoins or ATMs, like platforms that aren't going to have like as in depth of an analytics analysis.
Yes, actually, there was a quite large percentage, maybe 20 to 30%, about 20%, I can't recall, that was using peer-to-peer exchanges, and the rest was using centralized exchanges. So yeah, peer-to-peer exchanges are trending too. That's a good trend, I guess.
I also wonder if it's got something to do with the market shutdowns, because I imagine that 30%, like got affected with these market shutdowns. So I'm sure that had an effect on the amount of mixing going on.
Yeah, who knows? Anyhow, next topic about this is that stolen credit card data, they were, well, where is the stolen credit card data from? How do people actually get that data? And they were citing data breaches, hotel front desk workers, and waiters. So if you eliminate the data breaches, for example, you're not storing credit card data of your customers, or just use Bitcoin, then credit card fraud is not gonna be that prominent. Next topic was child pornography, which they did not talk about much because they were, well, it's a sensitive topic, so they didn't want to talk about that. But they said a few things. One thing was, this is much smaller than anything else on the darknet. This is mainly organized crime groups, and access to these is extremely hidden. You cannot find it even on the darknet because they are hidden. This kind of activity is banned from the darknet marketplaces. So yeah, it's but it's something that they wanted to bring up, even if it's insignificant. Impact of dream market shutdown. This was a case study that what happened after they shut down dream market, because there were some interesting things. One, that they noticed that other darknet markets were courting displaced vendors from dream market. So everyone wanted to, hey, come to my market. That's interesting. And the most who got the most customers from the market was actually Wall Street market. And the Wall Street market, what they noticed, it got shut down by law enforcement. They didn't say how, but what they said is that they noticed that Wall Street market actually started to exit scam right before the law enforcement shut down. So that's an interesting thing there, and that's about that's about that's about the Chainalysis report. I think it was very interesting, informative too.
So what you're saying is that Wall Street market was ran by some dirty cop who knew that the bust was coming.
I don't know, maybe. It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I think, that's a pretty good illustration of just, the overall trends I think you'd expect. I mean, obviously, like, Bitcoin demand for darknet markets is going to be very inelastic. Like, there's really nothing else that you can use for that.
Yeah, I try to act like it was very... These things were not really news. The only thing that really was news for me is that mixing became much less popular. I didn't know that. Everything else is like, well, we kind of know everything, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. That does kind of make sense, though, because, if customers are just going to on-ramps where they don't really have to worry about it, like their ID isn't being tied to it, then, I mean, they don't have to care. Like, it's really only the vendors when they go to try and convert or something. And if they're using the same kind of on and off ramps, then, I mean, it's not really that important.
I'm just interested or the beginning when you were saying there's like certain exchanges that does like most of the business with these darknet markets, and we're seeing all these things shut down. I mean, I guess it's safe to say that they're like working with law enforcement, these exchanges, as far as Bitstamp and Binance and these other guys.
Yes, it's fair to say they were actually talking about that it's very important for exchanges to work with law enforcement seamlessly, and not just that, but many exchanges are working with law enforcement, very very helpful to law enforcement, and these exchanges, what I talked about, BitPay, Bitstamp, Binance, Corebit. These were, there was a slide that, hey, we are proud of, these are our customers. So these are just the largest exchanges that they are most proud of. So it's not limited to these exchanges.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Guys like fucking Kraken and BitMEX, all these guys need to get together. I don't know. There just needs to be, like, the fact that cannabis is #1 thing selling. It just makes me think it's ridiculous that all these people are basically, they're having to do something that they're not exactly familiar with and they're scared of and they could go to jail for, just to get access to a friggin' plant that can help them with something, man. That's where it's like, it's an aggravating point about the whole thing, where it's like, you're right. I mean, like, there are some terrible things on there, that CP stuff, and there's like bounty hunters, all this kind of crazy stuff is available down there. But I mean, for the most part, it's like people trying to get medicine.
Rick, didn't you know that marijuana addicts are really crazed rapists with semen encrusted pants from jacking off all the time?